Hello. The sights and sounds of a particular season can always be seen in the kitchen, but it's the aroma that gives away what season you're celebrating. However, I must admit that pumpkin is a perennial favorite in our house. It's one of our favorite vegetables, and it's pretty good for you. But our favorite is pumpkin bread. And as you can see here, it's in the little mini loaf version. But this is such a simple recipe. Even a beginner will enjoy this, and the results are wonderful. Now, I've already measured my ingredients for you, and in this bowl we have 3 1/3 cup flour, and I also have the sugar mixed in here, which is 3 cups of sugar. But as you know, I'm a brown sugar fan, so I used 1 1/2 cups of brown sugar and 1 1/2 cups of granulated sugar. So that's going to give it a more caramel-like flavor in the end product. And then we've got 1 can of pumpkin here, or it's 2 cups. And be sure not to pick up the pumpkin pie mix. Pick up a 16-ounce can of pumpkin. So this is in the bowl here. And then we have 4 eggs. And if you want to be a little more meticulous, you can go ahead and whisk the eggs because they'll go into the mix a little bit better. And then we have a 1/4 cup of water, 1 cup of oil. Now the oil is going to make it really good and moist, and that's one of the pluses in this recipe. And for our lesser ingredients, we have a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of cinnamon, we have 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. And of course we're going to put that in the dry ingredients first. And where would I be without my vanilla? I love to add just maybe 1/2 to a full teaspoon of vanilla. I think it just brings out the flavors of the other ingredients. So let's get ready and put them all in our mixing bowl. Very, very simple. And of course that's our star ingredient. And we'll put that in there. We need those for sure. And the oil to make it moist and good. And a little bit of water to blend it all together. And at long last, this is a really scientific method. I'm just going to put in a little vanilla. Okay, it's very well blended right now, and as you can see, it changed a different color from the very orange pumpkin we saw earlier. It's much more mellow. That was about 1.5 minutes. Of course, you can tell when all the ingredients are thoroughly blended. And I'm just going to stir in case there's any little extras that were in the bottom of the pan. I'm just going to give it a final stir, and then we'll be ready to put it into the pans.
And go ahead.
Now this is the fun part. This is when you can take a basic, simple recipe and make it into something different. And what I have here is the little mini-sized loaf pans. And then I've also got a small little bread pan if you wanted individual servings at a table to use maybe at Thanksgiving. So that's kind of fun too, and I'll give you a little tip on something else you can do with this at the end of this. But first of all, I've got about a 1/4 cup here, and I'm just going to scoop it down in there. And then I'm going to put it in my pan. Of course, we know no things are exactly simple. You're going to have a few little bits of messes on the sides of your pan that you can clean up. And I've only got the pan about 2/3 full, because if you get it more filled than that, you will notice that it takes longer to bake in the center, and it would be more done on the edges. But this is about, not quite a cup I'm putting in there. And that's going to be just about the right size, because then when it bakes, it's going to have a rounded top. And now we're going to do the mini loaf pans. And these will be about, I would guess about a cup will go into them. You just have to be your own best judge on that. But again, you don't want to get them too filled, because they're not going to cook in the center, but they will cook more around the edges. So 2/3 full is pretty good. So this is the finished product. When we put the little loaves into the oven, we bake them for 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. Although use the little toothpick test and you'll know for sure. If the toothpick comes out clean and you put it in the center, it's done. If not, you'll want to bake it a little bit. But now we're back to what's the best part, tasting and sampling our pumpkin bread. And here was the mini loaf of bread that I showed you in the beginning with a few of the slices. But I also wanted to give you a little different idea when you use the little loaf pan, like you might use for bread at a table as a side dish. I've taken the little loaf pan, I took one out, cut it in half. I put some whipping cream or Cool Whip, whatever you choose, as a filling in between. I put a little caramel glaze on top and a little bit of candy corn. And now you have a dessert. It's more like a pound cake now that you could cut this in half for 2 people at the end of the meal. And whether it's in the classroom teaching kids or whether it's here in my kitchen, I don't want you to ever forget the 2 most important ingredients, sharing and caring.